The guys that built that, you know, oh, fantastic. Just looking up at them and you see the structure and the work that's in the type of thing, you know, from them days.
It's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful, beautiful building when you look at it on the outside and you look at the old photographs of it. It sort of epitomises the Victorian philanthropy that took place at that time.
There's a big affection for the FLORRIE from generations of people, not just the local people, but people spread out all over Liverpool and all over the world.
Transforming a building is a sign, really, of transforming a community.
Bernard Hall invested greatly. You could tell his passion for this building by the investment, the building techniques, just the materials that were used.
It's impacted on the lives of a lot of people. I think if you knocked it down and rebuilt it, then we would have lost something.
You can see that somehow this building has meant a lot to a lot of people.
It's in your blood, which basically it is. Talk to lads now that I see who used to be in the team when I was 18 years of age, and they're all asking about the FLORRIE. You know, they said it'd be great to have it back again. There's just nothing like it around, you know.
FLORRIE was excellent because it had everything.
Going in a FLORRIE, the noise, you know, of everything, all the lads doing different things. I think it's an iconic building. And I don't think there are very many buildings like that in Liverpool, and especially when, you know, the large percentage of the money was given by one family. And I think to have knocked it down would have been an insult to the Hall family.
But you can still imagine the smells there. You can still hear the noises, different parts of the FLORRIE. Went up the main staircase, you could start to hear the boxing, the punch bags going, Dad's voice shouting, you know, shouting to lads and, you know, encouraging.
We used to get top class Xboxers who used to come and, you know, help you run the place, to be the MC and things like that. And it was very good.
Well, I've had 283 fights. And I've hardly got a mark on me. I've boxed the Russians, the Germans. I was in the last Empire Games. I got picked to go to the 1960 Olympics. I got picked to go to the 1956 Olympics.
And people are just absolutely stunned by this building. They either know it and they come along, I used to go to the FLORRIE. That happens every time. We used to go to the FLORRIE, or my dad used to box for the FLORRIE, used to play football for the FLORRIE, and it comes across all the time, the love and the association that people have with the FLORRIE of the past.
She was just such a beautiful building that you had to do something about it. Some guy in the council, he said, The structure's as sound as it could be. He said these Victorians knew what they were doing when they built. Look how thin the mortar is between the bricks. Look, and he, you know, so you sort of notice things then, don't you?
I've done a couple of clean-outs myself in the main hall upstairs about 4 years ago when the roof collapsed. We moved, it was approximately 22 skips full of rubbish in buckets basically off the main hall floor, stop it collapsing. And it was just, I know, you could still hear the noises. As you walked in, the FLORRIE, the way it used to be, you could still imagine things going on there, you know, but then you get upstairs to the main hall and look up, and there's a big open space, roof's gone, burnt.
When I first saw it, my heart dropped. You know, it had trees growing out the roof and all the windows smashed in, and you know, and I just wondered, who, you know, how people could look at this and say we can do something about that in the community.
And again, on the staircases, the pigeon droppings had been working, except possibly the pigeon droppings had helped because they'd protected the wood underneath. But there's about how much? About 6 inches of droppings that they had to clear out.
The good thing about it, we've never given up. You know, there's been some terrible knockbacks and you think, oh gosh, it's never going to happen, you know, we'll never get the money together.
And I think the person who really has got to be thanked for this is Denise, because she has really been the go-getter in this.
Denise's knowledge and drive and dynamism is just quite remarkable.
And I honestly, with all due respect to all the other trustees, I don't think that it would ever have got off the ground if she hadn't been involved.
You know, without Denise, you know, I don't think we'd have made it.
She deserves a damehood, I think.
I don't know what it is. Sometimes it's intangible. You can't quite put your finger on what it is. It's something that came from something so sad, that the loss of a daughter, a child, that became so magnificent to an area.
We did quite a lot of research when we first were appointed, and part of the work we did was to undertake a conservation management plan which looks at the history of the building and then looks at its significance both in terms of architectural history but also in terms of social history.
Scars and wear and tear of a building that is, well, essentially over 100 years old now, but a very, very likeable building, although very plain inside, still very welcoming and a fabulous place to be in.
Clearly, it was in a really bad state, And the first thing that we were asked to do was to work out how we would sort of make it safe and clear it out and get it to a point where really the final decisions could all be made about what to repair and how to repair it and everything.
So everything has to be meticulously planned. We have to do risk assessments and method statements for every Go on, I'll start that again in a sec. We only need 5 minutes. At the moment, William Ainley's, we carry a lot of our own staff who are used to working on these sort of buildings. It has to be, although we are currently, phase one is what we call a demolition project, it has to be demolished very carefully, so we're saving a lot of materials, making sure that we look for any clues in doors or door frames, skirting boards, so everything isn't just ripped out and thrown in a skip. We're trying to record the interesting elements and the elements that we have to put back in phase two. So all those are collected and labelled and we store them ready. So if we need to copy anything, we've got replicas to copy off.
No, I think, is it 100 tonnes of scaffolding? Some, extraordinary figure for the amount of scaffolding that's been used. And then they put the big curtain around it.
Whoever designed the scaffolding, it's not a jigsaw, we're trying to work out, we settled on Meccano set. Somebody's Meccano set gone wild.
People that have give weekends up, blood, sweat and tears, it hasn't been easy. It's always with the hope that now we will see the rewards for that time and effort.
All the work tasks plotted out on one side with everything that we've got to do.
Suddenly you were coming back into here and thinking, do you know, this is going to work, this is going to be fantastic. When you start to see the roofs going on and you start to feel the shape of the spaces, I think that's what I'm trying to say, because when there was no roof on it and it was all just damaged and opened up, you lost, to me, the feel for what it was like as a building. But the point at which, the roof's on, the roof was on in the gym and the skylight was in, and the floor levels were starting to be down, and you could walk round into proper rooms and you could feel the spaces. I think that was probably the best moment, because then you're starting to think, do you know, this is quite something. This is going to be a good job.
What the plan was originally was to bring in the trusses and have this huge crane that would lift the trusses up and place them on the top of the building. But what they're looking at now is bringing the wood in and actually building the trusses within the FLORRIE.
The end result is seeing her being restored and and imagining and visualising what she will be doing, you know, what the building will be like, the vibe and the atmosphere and the culture and the activities, and just imagining and visualising all that activity, all that busyness going on in the building.
What will happen is they move the roof, the panel of the roof across, so then they'll have a big crane in. Last night we were told they're actually going to make them on site, in situ, which is far, far nicer. And they'll actually bring the timber in and they'll cut it and make it on site, those trusses, which I think that isn't done nowadays apparently.
The frustration's now disappearing, and people are seeing that there's something substantial coming out, you know, rising out of the flames, so to speak, rather like the phoenix on the front of the annual report.
The roof is just amazing. The woodwork is beautiful.
I think it's great. It's really beginning to look like the community centre it will be once again. Yeah, and it's such a great thing that a lot of the events that are happening there are what happened before.
Eddie, the lad himself, with a fine-looking body on him, gets Alan rather excited when he sees this one.
That photograph was taken by Arthur Hackett.
There's our Twinny there. On Twinny, we don't. His name's Henry Sinclair, but we always get Twinny.
Never got a photograph of that team at all.
Some good lads there.
How did it affect our lives? I think it affected us in the point of view that he became part of a team, not just a football team, but the FLORRIE. Because he'd done a vast number of things, from football to cricket to athletics to model making, table tennis, weightlifting, boxing. So you became a team of the FLORRIE, regardless of whether you were in one or the other. You were all the team, and it seemed to plant you on the correct path of living.
Sunday brick, what it is what they do is they do a surface treatment on the old brick where the glaze has disappeared. Then they'll do a base coat and then several stippled coats of varnish on top till they get an appearance of the same.
So it looks like it, but actually the brick's quite far back. Oh, it's so clever.
If you go into the gym, on one of the entrance doors, you'll see on one side it's before and one side that's after. It's quite stark.
When you think about it, because the architects and the engineers have managed to design it, it's still now got a really good modern building research establishment energy rating, the same as a you know an average modern building would have, which is fantastic. And then you look at all these different spaces that have been revealed in a way. And you know, there's loads of character to them, isn't there? And loads of all that history and seeing all the old boys coming round and everything. It does make it something that, you know, you could never capture that history without having the building for it to keep living in, I guess.
The Heritage Resource Centre is a place where we have kept the heritage, if you like, of the FLORRIE. So the history of the FLORRIE is in that room. And also, importantly, at some point during the restoration period, the management asked people in the community to donate anything they have, which was linked to the FLORRIE. And we have had literally hundreds of stuff which has been donated. And again, this is another thing that makes the FLORRIE part of the community, because people can come in and say, oh, that's my dad's medal that you've got on display there. So from that perspective, it's integral to the community.
I was going through one side of the basement and I thought I'd picked the correct torch up and I hadn't. It was the wrong one, and it started to fade. It was pitch black down there. So I was trying to get out and I fell over something. The next time I went down, I went to see what it was. There's this big projector, and it was about nearly 3 foot high. It was just left there. I don't know how it survived the fire and everything, but it was perfect.
But the Heritage Centre will also be part of our educational work that we do in the FLORRIE. We want schools, colleges and universities to do their researches in the Heritage Centre, pick up an item that's of interest to them and do some research on it and better educate everybody else. So I'm really calling on all the schools and colleges to come and visit, come and have a look at what's in there and see what they can do, what we can learn from what we've got in the Heritage Centre. The Heritage Centre as well will carry temporary exhibitions. So I don't want people to say, well, I've been once, I don't need to go again. If you've been once, if you come back within a month, it will be different to what you saw the first time. So people need to keep coming in and using the place. And guess what? It's free.
We've not just restored a building, we've restored hopefully a sense of pride and also opportunities secured for the future for the area. So I'm hoping that Bernard would be proud.
Everybody here was totally committed to the project. It wasn't a difficult sell because I knew that everybody here on the ground was actually doing everything that they said they were going to do. It was a truly community-led project.
There's a quote from a very famous novel called The Power and the Glory, which I always use. It says, "There's always a moment in childhood when the door opens and lets the future in." Well, that door's the FLORRIE, and it's letting in a future that means that the children and young people who do all sorts of different activities here will find their own gifts and talents and will flourish into the future.
Seeing the drawings that have been done and the plans and what we've got lined up for the FLORRIE, besides the community spirit that I think will be there, it's going to be unbelievable.
Long after we're gone, the FLORRIE's still going to be there.
We know she's in good hands and she's being looked after by the contractor until they pass it back to us, and we've now got to concentrate on being ready for when we get her handed back.